Imagine a country just teetering on the edge of another civil war. Panic is everywhere, conspiracy theories are flying, and the whole nation is about to tear itself apart over one single question: who should be king? Now, what if I told you that into all that chaos, a poet stepped up with a secret weapon? Not a sword, but a palm. A palm designed to calm the storm and actually shape the future of the kingdom. Well, this isn't some fantasy story. This was 17th century England, and the poet was John Dryden. Let's get into it.
This is really the story of John Dryden's masterpiece, Absalom and Achitophel, and it pushes us to ask this kind of wild question. Can a work of art, a single poem, actually change the course of history? That's what we're here to figure out.
So, to really get the power of Dryden's poem, we first have to understand the absolute firestorm it was thrown into. This wasn't some quiet literary debate in a stuffy room. This was a full-blown national emergency.
Okay, so the late 1670s in England were a complete mess. It all kicks off in 1678 with something called the Popish Plot, which was a totally fabricated story about a Catholic conspiracy to murder the king. But it caused absolute mass hysteria. All that fear then fuels this thing called the Exclusion Bill, which was a political move to stop the king's Catholic brother from ever taking the throne. By 1681, things were so tense, King Charles II literally had to dissolve Parliament just to stop the bill. The country was at a breaking point.
And this whole conflict really boiled down to two guys. On one side, you've got James, the Duke of York. He's the legitimate heir, he's the king's brother, but he's also openly Catholic, which absolutely terrified Protestant England. And on the other side, you've got the Duke of Monmouth. He's the king's illegitimate son, but he's handsome, he's Protestant, and the people loved him. So the choice was between legitimate succession and religious security. What a nightmare.
And this is where our guy enters the story. John Dryden, the most famous writer of his day, decides he's going to weigh in on all this. Not with a political pamphlet or a speech, but with poetry.
And let me tell you, Dryden was no lightweight. He was England's very first poet laureate. He was an absolute master of verse and had this devastatingly sharp satirical wit. I mean, he was so influential that we literally call the whole era the Age of Dryden. And, this is the crucial part, he was a fiercely loyal supporter of King Charles II, and he was about to put all of his incredible talent to work defending the throne.
Now, Dryden couldn't just write a direct attack on the king's political enemies. I mean, that was way too dangerous. So, he came up with this absolutely ingenious solution. He decided to use a really famous story from the Bible as a kind of secret code, an allegory, to talk about everything that was happening.
All right, so let's crack that code. Let's pull back the curtain and see exactly how Dryden built this powerful political argument all hidden in plain sight.
First, though, what exactly is an allegory? Well, basically, it's a story where all the characters and all the events are just symbols for something else. In this case, they're symbols for real people and real political events. It was so clever because it let Dryden say everything he wanted to say, but with this protective layer of art and the Bible wrapped around it.
The code itself was simple, but oh my gosh, it was effective. In the Bible, there's a story about King David. His handsome, popular son, Absalom, gets manipulated by a wicked advisor named Achitophel into rebelling against his own father. For anyone reading this in the 1680s, the parallels were screamingly obvious. King David was, of course, the beloved but maybe too forgiving King Charles II. The popular, rebellious son, Absalom, that was the Duke of Monmouth. And the evil, manipulative advisor, Achitophel, well, everyone knew that was the Earl of Shaftesbury, the guy leading the opposition party.
Now, at the absolute heart of this whole crisis was a rumor that Monmouth supporters were spreading everywhere. They claimed that years ago, King Charles had secretly married Monmouth's mother. Now, if that was true, it would make Monmouth the legitimate heir to the throne. This was their whole case. But Dryden's poem walks right up to this rumor and just shuts it down. He portrays Absalom as deeply loved by his father, for sure, but he makes it crystal clear that he is illegitimate. No right to the throne, period.
But see, Dryden's poem was doing so much more than just retelling an old story with new names. He was making a really profound argument about power, about God, and about the very fabric of government itself.
This right here, this is the poem's most serious message, its real core. Dryden was a huge believer in the divine right of kings. This idea that a king's power comes directly from God, not from the people. So in his view, to rebel against the rightful king wasn't just treason against the country, it was a sin against God. It was trying to upend the natural, God-given order of the universe.
And he shows exactly how that chaos starts. It starts with personal ambition. In the poem, Achitophel is just hungry for power, and Absalom desires a crown he's not entitled to. That ambition leads directly to political treason. And Dryden's warning to the whole country is crystal clear. If you let personal ambition run wild, it doesn't just destroy a few people, it threatens to drag the entire nation down into chaos and civil war.
But the poem isn't all serious, heavy philosophy. Not at all. Dryden's other great weapon was satire. He used humor, irony, and ridicule to just cut his enemies down to size, to make them look not just dangerous, but completely foolish.
And you want a perfect example? Look at his portrait of the Duke of Buckingham, another one of the king's big opponents. He shows up as this character named Zimri, and Dryden just roasts him. He describes him as a man who's everything by starts and nothing long. Just a foolish, inconsistent guy who can't stick to anything. It's brilliant. By making his enemies look absurd, Dryden completely undermined their authority. It's a political takedown disguised as a literary sketch.
So, okay. The exclusion crisis eventually ended, all these political figures are long gone. So why in the world are we still talking about this poem more than 300 years later? Well, it's because it did something incredible. It transformed from a piece of political propaganda into a timeless work of art.
Absalom and Achitophel is a masterpiece because it shows how literature can jump into the messiest political moments and create something that lasts forever. Dryden's skill with the rhyming heroic couplet is just, well, it's masterful. The poem is one of the greatest examples of political satire ever written, and it proves that you can fight for a political cause not just with anger and shouting, but with intelligence, with reason, and with incredible, undeniable artistic skill.
And that really leaves us with the final, fascinating thought, doesn't it? Dryden's poem was, without a doubt, a political tool, but it was also, without a doubt, a work of art. It makes you wonder, in these huge moments of national crisis, when art and politics smash into each other so forcefully, can we ever really separate them? Where does one truly end and the other begin?